Thank you.
Thank you very much. Members will be recognized by order of seniority for their 5 minutes of questions. An additional round of questioning may be called after all members have been recognized. I now recognize myself for 5 minutes for opening questions. Mr. Yoes, while recent heinous acts have brought increased attention to the rise in threats against law enforcement, I'm well aware that this is a danger agents and officers have faced for a long time. In your testimony, you mentioned how your organization has looked at recent attacks as a persistent, growing issue over the last 2 decades. Can you elaborate on the historical patterns of attacks against law enforcement your organization has been monitoring?
So we started collecting this data because we recognized a trend in this country. And surprisingly, while we track a lot of data in this country, we were not tracking the amount of law enforcement officers or violence towards law enforcement officers. All we knew was certain aspects of that. So we started tracking this data because we knew it was going to show us a pattern. And I want to be clear, you know, I know there's a lot of political charged discussion here, and I expected that, but I'm going to ask you to just recognize, I'm telling you that 2,553 officers have been shot in the last 7 years. That spans 2 administrations. So if we want to try and focus on the fact that politics is doing this, I think we're missing the point, and we're doing a disservice to the people who suit up and show up every single day in communities across this country and do their job. What we're seeing is a number of factors, and that is the dehumanization of law enforcement officers. And this goes over, like I said, 7 years. As a matter of fact, I would argue that if you look at the past 4 years, the numbers were actually higher than a high spike. Not that they were low numbers to start with. So the challenges are much greater, much greater. It has to do with unchecked comments made to dehumanize law enforcement officers that are causing people to act on what they feel is a community built around their own belief system.
I can't agree with you more. I think these political attacks amongst political opponents are putting actual targets on the law enforcement men and women's backs instead of their opponents. And I think we need to recognize that's been happening for the last, as you said, 7 years.
I will tell you that my members are both Democrat and Republican, and we're all having the same problem.
As these targeted threats against officers and their families continue to escalate, what measures do you believe law enforcement agencies should prioritize to keep personnel safe on and off duty?
Well, so it's a pretty big question. It could take a while to answer. I'm going to start off in the context of what we have here. I think the first thing we need to do is we need to turn on a rhetoric. We all need to recognize that we all play a part in this. This is on both sides. We need to recognize that there's a real crisis here, and it really is upsetting that this is the first hearing we haven't on this in quite some time. But they have quantitative data to show there's a real problem. I'll make a comparison. You know, Congress's responsibility is a lot of things. One of them is to make sure that Americans working in their jobs can do so under safe environments. And I'll give you an example. If there were a cave-in at a coal mine, we would have hearings on the safety of that coal mine, and so you should. What about the 2,533 officers that are shot over 7 years? What more quantitative data do we need? So the first thing we need to do is we all need to turn down a rhetoric, and we need to focus that there is, in fact, a real problem, and stop trying to paint it as one person's problem as opposed to the others, because it is all of our responsibilities to find a solution to it. Turn down a rhetoric. Turn down a rhetoric. Stop dehumanizing law enforcement and recognize that words have consequences. And for people who believe that, they act on those. That would be number one. The second would be pass the Protect and Serve Act. Give the federal government the opportunity, the Department of Justice, to step in under certain circumstances in order to be able to protect the interests of law enforcement officers and their communities with the increase in violence we're seeing.
Thank you. Mr. Hughes, ICE enforcement officers and other federal law enforcement partners are working to ensure our nation's laws are being followed. Fortunately, rising anti-police sentiment has compromised officer and agent safety. Can you talk about the impact on federal law enforcement when such strong opposition is encouraged and directed towards officers who are simply enforcing the law?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And
Just want to say thank you for all your efforts in enhancing the protection of law enforcement officers, state, local, federal. Particularly grateful for all your work and leadership in 9/11 health issues and aiding the responders through the World Trade Center health program, which I was there as well. So appreciate all the efforts from you and all the members of the committee. Law enforcement, the anti-law enforcement sentiment that is being displayed is very real. It's very impactful. It's impactful on recruitment, retention. It's impactful upon how people do, law enforcement officers do their work. And it's a matter of, we need to be working together. Everyone up here, all the witnesses has made the comment about both sides working together. I think this is a common issue that we could all be working together on in decreasing the rhetoric on what is happening and protect our officers. Look at ways to protect the officers. It is widespread. We need to make sure we are working together and looking at ways that we could enhance through enhancing laws or coming up with new bills, which is being done. But again, coming together and working together to have this done.
Thank you very much. And we're going to do our best, because I think there's going to be a lot of participation today, and I know we ran over a little on the 5 minutes there, but we're going to do our best to stick to 5 minutes so everybody has time to speak today. I now recognize the ranking